Most people don't despise smart people. They don't like how smart they feel about themselves. This is what no one says out loud. You're not being turned down because you're unpleasant, don't want to be around people, or think you're better than everyone else. You're being upheld because you won't change the way you think to make life simpler for everyone else. You strolled into rooms as yourself, with your complete self, your mind present, and no changes made. And it alone broke the unspoken rule that everyone should be comfortably ordinary. Most individuals follow a subtle social rule. Don't make anybody feel exposed. Even if the joke is dumb, laugh at it. Even if it doesn't make sense, nod. Play dumb so no one feels dumb. Be less smart so the group can remain calm. There are no rules about it, yet it is followed everywhere, and the mood changes as soon as you break it. All of a sudden, you're too serious, too intense, or, my favorite, you think too much, as if thinking were a bad thing and not the whole purpose of having a brain. This truth makes it more clearer. Research on social conformity shows that individuals feel safer among those who are at the same level of knowledge as they are, not those who are smarter than them. In other words, you're not incorrect, you're just annoying. Your clarity makes things tense. Your knowledge increases the bar. And when you don't fake, it makes things awkwardly quiet, and people have to face themselves or become angry and blame you instead. This is so silly that you should add some comedy to it. You may be standing there, not saying anything, and yet be accused of doing too much. Well done, you are now so self-aware that just being alive is a societal problem. This talk isn't about being better than someone else. It's about not being ready to compromise yourself for comfort. It's about knowing that when you refuse to dumb yourself down, it doesn't only confuse people, it also makes them angry. When you realize this clearly, you'll stop attempting to remedy an issue that wasn't yours to begin with. First, your clarity shows how much of their personality is all for show. Most people are not being themselves. They are controlling how others see them. They change their tone, make their ideas less strong, appear to agree, laugh a bit too loudly, and dull their thinking just enough to remain in the group. Over time, it becomes second nature. That performance seems like who you are. Then you go in with a clean mind and a strong sense of self, and something that makes you feel bad occurs. You show how hard everyone else is working to fake without even trying. Your clarity isn't loud. It doesn't act aggressively. It's hardly even a fight. That's what makes it risky. You don't try to get others to like you. You don't overreact to how you feel. You don't act confused to maintain the peace. You answer honestly, consider things thoroughly, and don't have to keep changing yourself throughout interactions. To someone who lives off of performance, this feels like being seen. People around you start to feel like they are being watched in ways they didn't agree to, not because you said anything, but because your presence takes away their cover. If you don't pretend to be interested, their artificial excitement will stick out. If you don't overreact, it's clear that they're overacting. The script breaks when you don't play along. People are scared when the script breaks. That fear leads into anger. They say you're dry, hard to read, or behaving differently. What they're truly scared of is that their own personality is primarily made up of things they've seen or done. You tell them that they've been changing themselves for so long that they don't know where the performance stops and the person starts. That's why they become angry instead of intrigued. To be curious, you would have to be honest. To be honest, they would have to acknowledge that they've been living on autopilot. It's simpler to be mad with you than to think about how I've let myself go for years. You aren't trying to make people feel bad. You're simply not going to fake it. In a society where you have to change all the time to stay alive, being real might seem like a danger. Not because it's mean, but because it's clean. It doesn't conceal. It doesn't bend. It doesn't work. For those who have based their whole sense of belonging on performance, that type of clarity seems like an indictment, even if it wasn't meant to be. Second, you make individuals face the intelligence they gave up. When you don't dumb yourself down, you don't simply stand out. You show everyone around you who they are. At some time, most individuals make a decision. They gave up inquiry, sharpness, and depth for comfort, approbation, or just the satisfaction of fitting in. They choose to be accepted by others over thinking for themselves. They stopped asking uncomfortable questions, stopped questioning their own beliefs, and stopped trying to learn more. That's good until someone like you comes along. You think deeply, tell the truth, and go through life without always changing who you are to fit in. You're psychologically there in ways others aren't. You don't think twice. You don't water down or soften your thoughts only to make them feel safer. People around you have to see what they've left behind because of this. They don't dislike how smart you are. They detest being reminded of the aspects of themselves that they let go of because it was simpler to be comfortable. This makes them feel a tension that you can see but is extremely real to them. Your presence becomes a trigger. Every smart idea, every clear viewpoint, and every moment of unashamed thinking is a quiet challenge. It doesn't matter that you aren't saying anything bad about them. Even if you don't want to make them feel tiny, it doesn't matter. Your sheer presence, together with your reluctance to narrow your thinking, pushes them to face a fact they buried long ago. They stopped developing, and now they're being shown what they might have had. It's unpleasant, and discomfort makes people angry. They could label you arrogant, rude, or too much, but what truly bothers them is the stress you cause just by being yourself. You are not hurting them. You're showing them the difference between who they could be and who they decided to be. And that exposure is strong. It's real, and there's no way to prevent it. You serve as a reminder of the intellectual concessions they made and the curiosity, courage, and mental clarity they left behind. People frequently become angry instead of thinking about their own stagnation when they see it in someone else, and they avoid instead of engaging with it. Free. Your existence shatters the idea that being average is normal. Most people spend their lives believing a comfortable lie, that being average is all anybody can hope for, that success is measured by comfort and safety, and that it is harmful to question, think deeply, or stand out. It's a social compact based on silent compromise, where everyone agrees to keep safe. They convince themselves it's normal because it's simpler than facing the truth, that they let their potential diminish to make things easier, more popular, or to avoid controversy. Then you won't play the game. You don't turn off your thinking, decrease your standards, or make your skills less useful. You work with complete awareness, clarity, and skill, and all of a sudden, the barriers that individuals created around themselves began to shake. What used to be okay now seems superficial. What used to be plenty now seems too little. You aren't saying anything bad about anybody, and you don't want them to change. But just by being here, you show the painful truth. There was never a law about being average. It was a decision. This is what causes problems. People don't always become angry at people who are good at something. They become angry because perfection makes them realize that what they thought was normal and safe isn't. Your intelligence, your ability to explain things clearly, and your refusal to dumb yourself down make people think about their own life, the sacrifices they've made, and the energy they waste trying to be someone they're not. In a society where lying to yourself is a way to protect yourself from feeling insecure, telling the truth might seem dangerous. Just being there makes you seem guilty without saying a thing. You are evidence that the ceiling they set for themselves was not set in stone. You expose the falsehood they've been living with, and such news makes them feel anxious. They can say you're scary, distant, or hard to deal with, but the truth is that they are just facing something they decided to avoid. You show them that being average isn't normal. You don't have to do it, and that revelation may be a lot worse than any fight. It doesn't only disrupt the illusion. When you are yourself in full vigor, it makes everyone else think about what they've been putting up with. And people don't often like that type of clarity, because it's easier to be angry than to be honest with yourself. For you don't conduct intellectual charity, which makes people scared. Most people think that life is a show where you have to act dumb enough to make them feel at ease. Over time, they've learned that if someone thinks too quickly, talks too clearly, or observes too much, it might make them feel tiny. So, the world runs on a kind of silent intellectual charity. People overlook stupidity, agree with nonsense, and put up with superficial thinking so that no one feels exposed. Everyone knows the rules, but no one talks about them. You shatter that without even trying. You don't make things easier for others so they feel clever. You don't stop to explain things that are clear to you. And you don't tone down your clarity so you don't scare someone. You think at your own speed. You talk at your normal depth and think about things the way you always have. People are scared of that unwillingness to help others with their minds because it shows them who they are. People have to deal with the difference between how attentive you are and how aware they are when you don't bend. It's unpleasant because they've been pretending it doesn't exist for so long. This is why people frequently think you're being rude or arrogant. They aren't answering you, they are responding to their own fears. They want everyone to degrade themselves for the sake of societal harmony. And when you say no, it throws everything off balance. Every straightforward concept you say is like a mirror that shows them what they've been avoiding. Every truthful comment becomes a task they didn't want. It's funny that you don't want to injure anybody. You're simply living your life without making any compromises, without letting your wisdom get in the way of your comfort. And that honesty is scary. It makes individuals face a fact they don't want to see, that they've been getting by on mental shortcuts, half-truths, and performances. They didn't turn on the light of your clarity. And for some people, it's simpler to be mad with you than to cope with the truth. If you don't take part in intellectual charity, you are a silent troublemaker, not loud or aggressive, yet unavoidable. You remind the individuals that they shouldn't have to dull their lives to make others feel secure. And that type of presence is both unusual and scary. Fifth, you take away the social order they rely on. There are unseen ladders that most social connections are constructed on. People don't even realize they're trying to go ahead of each other. Who gets attention? Who gets the green light? Who do people think is entertaining, clever, or important? These hierarchies are not obvious, yet they shape how individuals act. Some are louder, while others praise themselves. Some people make their shortcomings seem worse than they are, while others conceal them on purpose. Everyone knows the rules, and everyone plays to stay alive. It's tiring, but you can count on it. Then you show up and refuse to play. You don't make your good qualities seem better than they are to impress. You don't downplay your presence to avoid a problem. You don't dance around what others want of you to remain loved. You are totally present and honest, at the level of awareness and participation that comes naturally to you, and the impact happens right away. The invisible ladders fall apart when you show up. People who used to compare themselves all the time, manipulate others in subtle ways, or act out suddenly have nothing to compare themselves to. Their meticulously drawn social maps don't make sense anymore. This is why your honesty makes people angry. You aren't attempting to control somebody or show that you're better than them. But by not playing the latter game, you take away their regular ways of feeling good about themselves. When these hierarchies give someone confidence, power, or a feeling of worth, your lack of concern for them might seem dangerous. You are not in a race. You are simply being, and that simple act shows how much of their social competence is not talent at all, but a perfectly planned display. The outcome is stress. People can call you distant, hard to work with, or not team-oriented. But what's actually going on is that their framework is falling apart. They have to find their way through a social environment where merit, intellect, and presence are not based on manipulation or trying to get acceptance. That is confusing because it takes away control. and people naturally don't want to lose control, even when they don't have the right to it. You show how fake social hierarchy is by not being involved in it. You demonstrate that you don't have to make connections, respect, or influence. They may happen on their own when someone won't give in. And for individuals who need the latter, this reality is both aggravating and impossible to deny. Sixth, you make small conversation seem like what it is, a way to fill up your emotions. People say small conversation is a way to connect, but most of the time it's just emotional filler. It's a social lubricant that makes people feel at ease. It keeps them from thinking about how superficial most encounters are, and keeps them from having to deal with who they truly are. To keep up the appearance of unity, people laugh at jokes they don't think amusing, remark on things they don't care about, and nod at things that don't matter. Don't rock the boat is an unsaid rule. Don't be too genuine, and don't make anybody think too hard. You shatter that without even trying. You don't pretend to be interested. You don't make responses bigger, and you don't act like fluff is important. You react in a real way. You become involved deeply. You talk and listen at the degree of awareness that comes naturally to you, and all of a sudden, everyone around you sees the disparity. The planned flow of small chat breaks down. The jokes don't seem funny. The remarks seem superficial, and the grins seem fake. What used to be background noise that was pleasant now seems loud. People don't generally become curious. They become angry because they think that filler is all they need to have a social life. Your unwillingness to take part in it helps them face the emptiness they've been avoiding. Every time you talk to them, it's a subtle test. Can they stay up with your lucidity, or do they fall apart? And even when they can keep up, it's not easy. You simply took away their safety net, which was small chat. You're not being rude or hard to get along with. You're being honest. And that doesn't fit with the social script they've made for themselves. You show them that comfort is often chosen over substance, that connection is often traded for ease, and that most relationships are more about how things seem than how they really are. You bring to light things they've been ready to overlook, and honesty seems like a problem. You remind people that they don't have to make small conversation, and that meaningful connection takes work, depth, and courage, things that most people would prefer not do. When you don't want to speak about trivial things, you make everyone else in the room wake up, and that awakening, albeit little, is enough to make people uneasy, angry, and very conscious of how they are avoiding things. Seventh, those who are insecure see your self-respect as arrogance. Respect for oneself is silent. It doesn't need to be yelled, shown off, or explained. It's just not giving up your principles, knowledge, or presence to make other people feel better. But for those who need continual reassurance and feel insecure, self-respect might come out as loud, rude, or arrogant. They live in a world where ego and approbation are currency, and the norm for preserving peace is to bow, apologize for no reason, and put yourself down. Your typical conduct becomes a problem. when you don't want to be part of that economy. You don't laugh at jokes that make fun of how smart you are. You don't pretend to agree to avoid a fight. You don't say sorry for knowing what you know. You don't make yourself smaller so that other people feel larger. This appears scary to someone who base their identity on how others see them. Not following their regulations is a sign of self-respect, and regulations are what keep them safe. People are scared when regulations are broken. It's funny that they aren't really answering you. They are responding to their own actions. They are accustomed to others always putting themselves down. So when you just exist without making any changes, people feel like they're in danger. Every calm, straightforward, and unapologetic thing you say shows how much they've been bending, fluttering, and shrinking simply to fit in with others. That mirror makes me feel bad. They call you arrogant instead of dealing with it. It's simpler for them to blame someone else than to recognize that they are to blame. Your self-respect isn't scary because it's strong. It scares people, since it is always there and can't be denied. It's the tranquil confidence that you won't give up your own ideas or ideals to get what you want. And in a society where most people get by lowering themselves to fit in, that rejection seems like a fight. You don't want to control or put anybody down. You're just doing things your own way. And that's enough to drive those who are insecure go crazy. Being proud of yourself is not being arrogant. It's a mirror that shows all that others have given up. Their suffering is evidence that they haven't been living up to their full potential. You don't save people from their own shallow thoughts. People are used to their mental shortcuts, half-truths, and superficial perceptions. They've learned not to think too deeply over time since it's difficult, inconvenient, or just not needed for the life they've established. The world around them changes to make room for this. People laugh, nod, and give each other ongoing support so that no one feels challenged. And everyone thinks that what they say and do is adequate. You shatter that without even trying. You don't slow down your thoughts to match theirs. You don't make your thoughts less smart, go into too much detail about things, or avoid gaps in knowledge. You let your clarity shine through, even if it makes theirs seem bad. This isn't mean, it's the truth, and that honesty makes people uneasy, because it helps them see how limited their own thinking is. They're not accustomed to having someone work at a level they haven't kept up with, and your presence makes that difference too big to ignore. They want you to change so that they don't have to face the truth. You may soften the shock by being courteous or cautious, simplifying things, explaining things, nodding, or pausing to allow them catch up. But you don't. You work at your own level of comprehension and let them deal with the gap on their own. People who depend on intellectual generosity to feel competent are threatened by that reluctance to function as a crutch. They see your lucidity as judgment. Even if you don't judge, you simply won't save me. This is why individuals frequently behave defensively. It's unpleasant for them to face their own shallow thinking, so they could label you cold, condescending, or too much. It's simpler for them to blame you for their irritation than to confess that they've been too lazy for too long. Your unwillingness to help individuals who are thinking too shallowly makes them responsible, even if they don't like it. You tell them that development is necessary for life to be genuine and that respect requires mental work. And that reminder, even if it's easy to do, is a problem for anybody who has been living comfortably below their potential for years. You are an unforgettable presence that silently challenges others. Number 9. You mess up their emotional economy. A lot of individuals get through life by finding a balance between comfort, avoidance, and affirmation. They have unspoken rules regarding what they may feel, what they can say, and how others should act, so that their feeling of security isn't shaken. This underlying emotional economy is frequently the basis for relationships, talks, and even casual contacts. Everyone donates just enough to keep things even, and no one shakes things up too much. It's safe, predictable, and easy to handle. Then you show there, fully aware and refusing to give in. You don't change your energy to make yourself feel better about your anxieties. You don't act like you don't know something to make other people feel clever. You shouldn't hide the truth to keep others from becoming uncomfortable. You are completely present in your thoughts, body, and feelings, and your constancy shows how fragile the fake equilibrium that everyone else has been relying on really is. All of a sudden, the emotional rules they've been following don't work anymore, and the steadiness they counted on seems weak. You can see this disturbance, but it is strong. People around you start to feel smaller, more vulnerable, and uneasy, even if you haven't done anything to hurt them directly. Just being there makes them face the parts of themselves they've been hiding or ignoring, their anxieties, their vulnerabilities, their shortcuts, and their compromises. They weren't accustomed to seeing those pieces of themselves mirrored back without being judged, and the absence of protection makes me feel scared. It's not you that they're upset with. It's about how you make their world unbalanced. They are not upset with how real you are. They are upset because your honesty shows how inconsistent they are. You bring to light all of their fears, all of the lies they've been telling themselves, and all of the standards they've been avoiding. You make people face the truth by not making things easier, less painful, or more comfortable for them. You tell them that being strong or stable is not the same as manipulating their feelings, avoiding problems, or making deals. That type of disturbance, albeit quiet and subtle, is inescapable. You make them feel something, even if they don't want to. And in a society where most people suppress their sentiments, it is more scary than any fight could ever be. You don't mix up being likable with being real. Most individuals have been taught, without saying it out loud, that to be loved, you have to give up something. When you don't want to, sigh. If you don't agree, nod. Act like you don't know when you do. Change your demeanor, tone, and ideas so that other people feel at ease. Over time, this becomes a habit, and a lot of people don't know where their genuine self stops and their performance starts. They mix up value with approbation, respect with popularity, and honesty with convenience. You don't, you come up as your true self, uncensored, unapologetic, and not ready to change simply to be accepted. You don't shrink, water down, or walk on eggshells. You behave, talk, and interact with others in a way that is true to your principles, no matter who is watching. That amount of honesty is hard to find, and it's confusing for individuals whose lives are constructed around being liked. They are so used to controlling how others see them that when they meet someone who doesn't, it seems like a fight. Even if you don't mean to fight anybody, your inability to put being liked first reveals an unpleasant truth. Most people's social armor isn't about being charming or having a good personality. It's for safety. It protects people from being judged, feeling bad, and having to be genuine. When you do things outside of that system, you make people face the concessions they made to feel secure or appreciated, and that acknowledgement isn't enjoyable. People frequently don't get you because of this. People call you frigid, hard to deal with, or arrogant, but that's not because you are those things. It's because your honesty makes people question how they see themselves. They have to face the truth that like someone isn't the same as respecting them, and being accepted isn't the same as being genuine. You established a new standard by not mixing up being liked with being real. You demonstrate that you can have connections, power, and respect without lying or giving up. You remind people that they don't have to change who they are to get acceptance, and that they may choose to do so. That clarity is scary, but it's also true. It's not common. It doesn't give in, and you can ignore it. Number 11. You don't turn your depth into fun. People are only okay with intellect when it's packaged for them to eat. They appreciate it when someone is funny, theatrical, flamboyant, or just playing fun. That's when profundity becomes something safe, easy to understand, and joyful. They feel exposed when intelligence rides in a raw, calm, constant, and unapologetic way. They are accustomed to shows that make complicated things easy to understand. You can only have depth if it's a show, a product, or something to do. It can be there organically and without editing. You don't do anything. You don't make your thoughts sound more interesting, dramatic, or dressed up to make them simpler for others to understand. You are aware of yourself at your normal level. Your ideas are clear, your observations are clear, and you are grounded. You don't turn what you know into jokes, tales, or shows to get others to like you. You are just being, thinking, and talking as you normally do. People don't like that type of unvarnished honesty, since it doesn't feed into the regular social structure. Your depth reveals a fact that most people don't like to face. They are accustomed to consuming intellect, not interacting with it. They use entertainment to make things that are hard to understand easier to deal with, and they stay away from actual thinking since it takes work, introspection, and often painful self-awareness. If you don't exhibit your depth in a show, you break that system. You make them face reality on your terms, which may be scary. This is why people frequently get you wrong. People can say you're serious, intense, or even dull because they don't know how to deal with someone whose intellect doesn't meet their need for excitement or comfort. They are not responding to you. They are reacting to the difference between what they are used to and what you naturally give. They have to face the truth that depth doesn't need to be fun to exist, and that true intellect doesn't need to be validated to be useful. You make a presence that is unusual and inescapable by refusing to turn your depth into amusement. You remind people that being really aware doesn't mean putting on a show, that clarity doesn't require applause, and that the silent, unfiltered mind is more stronger than any performance could ever be. It's quiet, disruptive, and hard to ignore. Number 12. You show how weak their confidence really is. Confidence is frequently an illusion that is painstakingly built and kept up. A lot of individuals have built it on layers of approbation, social affirmation, and staying away from events that would make them question their value. They laugh when they don't want to, agree when they have doubts, and minimize their ideas to avoid disagreement. It's a weak structure, and they need other people to lower themselves to prevent it from falling apart. Then you come, you don't change how you are there, make things less clear, or tiptoe around their fears. You are aware of everything that is going on around you. Your ideas are clear. Your views are honest, and your energy is strong, and merely by being this manner, you show them a reality they've been trying to ignore. They don't really believe in themselves as much as they say they do. Every time you speak clearly and stand your position without giving in, you put subtle pressure on them that makes them realize what they've been keeping from themselves. This exposure makes them uncomfortable, and they typically respond defensively. They say you're too scary, too condescending, or too much. But what's truly going on is terror within. Your reluctance to bend is not a conflict, but it is a challenge to their well-crafted image of self-confidence. You show them everything they've been hiding, their fears, the concessions they've made, and the work it takes to seem good. The funny thing is that you aren't attempting to make them unstable. You're just being true to yourself, consistent, and mindful of yourself. But for those who need outside approval to feel good about themselves, your natural presence is a danger. They would rather mislabel you than confront the reality about how weak they are.